Welcome to the Reasonable Southerner podcast. The South isn't all magnolias in the moonlight, but neither is it all racism and violence. We are just like you. My name is Frances Coleman. I share my insights about my life and yours. I'm going to tell you a story that should ring true with each of you because it's a story that belongs to every one of us. Your facts may be different, but your truth is the same as mine. I began my career in journalism at a small daily newspaper in Texas. From there, I moved to a larger daily paper in my native Louisiana, where I learned about police juries and culprits, car wrecks and cops, and was subjected to the almost irresistible charm of a one-armed politician whose words came smooth and fast as he angled for a favorable story. Then I married and moved to Baldwin County, Alabama. After working for the weekly papers in Foley and Gulf Shores, I got a reporter job at the Mobile Press-Register. I worked there for 28 years, the last 17 of which I spent as the editorial page editor. I also wrote a column that was distributed across the country. I contributed to National Public Radio and the BBC. I know I was well liked, and I believe I also was well respected. Then one summer, late at night, I got a phone call from a person in the know in the newsroom of my paper, who told me that I and dozens of others would be fired the next day. When I returned to bed and said to my husband, "It's bad, it's really bad," do you know what he said? "Are the children okay?" That's how I began to learn about the story I want to tell you today. First, however, I spent a long night walking our two Great Danes and sobbing and cursing. I must confess, I do not cry prettily. There's a lot of snorting and snuffling, and because my complexion is fair, my nose gets red and my eyes get puffy. The next morning, the sun rose and I went to work, where I was handed a letter saying my employment was being terminated. It seemed very unfair at the time. I was the highest-ranking woman at the paper. I watched a lot of editors prattle and fawn over whoever they thought might save their jobs for just a few more months. The fact that almost all of them were eventually canned is not important. The additional fact that I was much better off in the long run does not matter either. I got a lot of support from family and friends as I left the only world of work I had known. My husband, our son, and a gaggle of our son's young pals pulled up in a limo as I left the building for the last time. They formed two lines at the automobile's door. Dressed in nautical attire with caps emblazoned RMS Carpathia, they threw a survivor's blanket over my shoulders and piped me aboard the long black car to a waiting Manhattan and a ride to a party. Now, if you don't know what that's all about, I would invite you to Google the RMS Carpathia, and you'll get the gag. As gratifying as the much appreciated support was, I have a much more important story to tell you about learning what's important in life and what's important about you and me. I know a couple in Robertsdale, Alabama, whose young child had a disease, cancer of the brainstem, that killed her. The little girl, her teachers, and her schoolmates prayed for her recovery earnestly and hopefully, but she didn't recover. She died as her mother and father and two young siblings were by her side. That happened right before Christmas. For that family and for those who are close to them, there was no joy to their world in Christmas anymore. Now and for the rest of their lives, every Christmas brings a difficult and sad remembrance. My children are healthy and successful adults. Both work in our family law firm. I have two grandchildren, each more wonderful and beautiful than the other. I just don't have any real problems. I have not lost a child. My husband loves me. My health is good. That's the first lesson. I have no real handicaps. The second lesson comes not from around me, but from within me. I learned this lesson through a veil of tears, too. I didn't feel well the other day, some sort of flu-like virus. I've been working with word processing computers since the days when the screen wasn't much bigger than an index card, and the words on that screen consisted of glowing green characters floating on a blackish green field. I have never been as frustrated, however, as I was when I struggled to use a web development program. I had a complete come apart. Through my tears, I found myself muttering, I can't do anything. I just can't do anything. My office is next door to that of my husband. Because he pays the rent on both, he has no compunction about sneaking up behind me as I work. Although he is a counselor in a very real sense, diplomacy and gentle guidance are not his long suits. What the hell is the matter with you? He growled. Log off that damn thing and draw how you want it to look on a sheet of paper. There's nothing about this you can't figure out. And quit that sniveling. That's the second lesson. Within the limits of my education, experience, physical strength, and endurance, there really is very little I can't do. I'm smart. I'm also well educated and well informed. Language and writing come easily to me. In that I can do things, I am no different from anyone else. The talents people have always amazed me. My son can turn to the refrigerator in one motion, the stove in the next, and in 10 minutes have a delicious meal on the table. He is a talented cook. When the plumber visited my house and stopped the leak that had made a soggy mess of our bedroom carpet, I was relieved, but I was also horrified at the hole he left in the wall. Then I watched a young handyman make that jagged wound in the wall disappear under a sheetrock patch and a coat of paint. It was like magic. We all have talents, but most of us are the last people to recognize them in ourselves. When our daughter was a teenager at the Catholic high school in Mobile, she competed with hundreds of other clarinetists for a spot in the all-state high school band. 36 clarinet players were chosen. She, her proud mama will remind you, was number one in her district. But when Sarah got to All-State in the first round of auditions, she called me tearfully and said, I was awful. I just know they're going to send me home. This has got to be a mistake. Well, it wasn't a mistake. She earned 11th chair among the 36 clarinets. Although she since traded her clarinet for the study of law, she was and is a talented musician. Everyone could see it but her. And that's the second lesson. You are worthy. You are talented. You can do things if you will free yourself to pick your passion, apply those two lessons, and do what it is you want to do. I, as a woman tipping on the far side of my 60s, am at a place I never thought I'd see. I have the freedom to take my lack of real problems and my gifts and talents and apply them to things I really want to do. When I view my possibilities in this light, I can't help but move forward in a spirit of optimism. We are so lucky. To browse the internet, you'd think we lived in a time of terrible crisis, stress, and trouble, but I don't buy that. Crisis is living in Ireland in the 1840s and watching your children starve because the potato crop failed. Stress is standing on a hillside in 10th century England and watching Vikings storm ashore bent on enslaving your children, killing your husband, and raping and then killing you. Trouble is not having a legal right to speak, to vote, to work. Our society has given us ample room for optimism. I am very fortunate I have been given a place to write and speak to you. My words and ideas are not important because they're mine. They only become important as they provoke you to think, to consider, and to lead the way forward. Yes, I started in the news business when we used carbon sets in a manual typewriter. If you don't know what a carbon set is, find someone with gray hair on his head and age spots on his arm and ask him. I've gone from newsprint to the radio to the internet and now to a podcast. I remember having only one television station to watch as a child and listening to a 50,000-watt Clear Channel radio station belt out rock music from Little Rock, Arkansas. However, nothing is more fun or convenient than browsing podcasts and finding something to listen to on subjects ranging from natural childbirth to the joys of being a Franciscan friar to making bread to the history of ancient Babylon. It's been fun getting here, even if it has been painful at times. Were it not for the rocky path I've climbed, I might have seen but never apprehended those two lessons I hold so dear. I don't recommend losing your job in your late 50s in order to clear and concentrate your mind. It has, however, focused me in a way I never would have thought possible. And to rob the name from the newspaper section I once edited, it has given me insight. And that is the gift and the story I hope that I have given to you. I'm Frances Coleman. I've worked for newspapers for more than 45 years, from Texas to my native Louisiana, and finally to my home near Mobile, Alabama. I've been a reporter, an editorial writer, a columnist, and an editorial page editor. I've commented on the BBC, been a guest on the Rachel Maddow Show, and had my column distributed nationwide. If you like this podcast, please follow it. It's free. And even if you don't like it, I hope you will find it thought-provoking.